Hi, my name is Felicia, and I'm the founder of Equine Assisted Natural Healing. One of the questions that I'm often asked is what happens in an Equine Assisted Natural Healing workshop or session. And since we don't film or photograph or videotape our participants or the sessions or the workshops, I thought perhaps I could provide you a narrative of a session that I had approximately 3 months ago, and that will provide you with a general sense of what happens. Having said that, not every session is the same. While I'm speaking, to make the narrative a little bit more interesting, there are also photographs of some of the horses, and I'm actually in the first photograph with a horse as well. In this particular session, it started with a phone call from a parent, and the parent described her daughter, who was, I believe it was 9 years old, and she was saying that her daughter had some real issues with connecting with people, and that it was affecting her school and her friends and the family, and she had heard about the Equine Assisted Natural Healing workshops, and her daughter had told her that she likes horses, and so she was wondering if I thought that a session might help her daughter. And I basically just said, well, if she likes horses, that's always a good beginning, and so a session was scheduled. On the day of the session, I met the mother and the child at the gate of the property, and I introduced myself, and the mother introduced herself, and the little girl didn't say anything. She kept her eyes to the ground, and so the mother introduced the little girl, and the little girl kept her eyes to the ground. As we were standing talking as a facilitator, I am also thinking about which horse would be the best horse, since I haven't met the individuals before. And I'm also trying to understand a little bit from a human perspective what the situation might be or the condition might be. It became apparent as we started walking towards the barn and the paddock that the little girl made absolutely no eye contact with her environment at all, or anyone in it. As we walked closer to the paddock where the horse that I felt would be the best helper with this little girl, as we walked closer to the paddock, the little girl made no eye contact with anything in the environment except for the ground. She really kept her eyes to the ground. I mentioned that we were coming to the horse, and I was looking forward to introducing her to this horse, and there was no response, and there was no eye contact with any aspect of her environment except the ground she was looking at in front of her feet. She was able to stay with us as we were walking, despite the fact that there was absolutely no eye contact with anything in the environment. When we came up to the paddock, I may, in a different session, I may have opened the gate and gone in to see the horse. But in this session, I needed the help of the horse. I could see that immediately. So we stood outside the gate of the paddock, and I talked a little bit about the horse and a little bit about just things that were relevant to the horse. And I knew that although this horse was finishing her breakfast hay, I knew that she would come over. She's a very friendly horse, and she's a very helpful horse as well. So as we were talking, she knew we were there. Horses always know. And so she already knew a lot about the people in the situation here. And as she walked over, she walked to the parent first. And this is because the parent was absolutely wild about her. The parent thought she was just beautiful and so pretty and just gushing. And so the horse responded to that energy first, of course. Then the child was standing beside the parent, and so the horse went up to the child and kept a distance from the child. Didn't go close or away from the child, but just a very respectful distance. And then the horse came up to me as well, moved over towards me, and I patted her and talked to her, and I knew that the little girl was taking in everything that was happening, even though she was not making any eye contact with anything except for the ground. Even when the horse came up to visit with her, she didn't look at the horse, she didn't touch the horse, she absolutely made no eye contact except for the ground. I, as a facilitator, knew the importance of this introduction and this meeting with the little girl and the horse. The horse knew much more about the situation than any of us in it, except for the mother. So after the horse had said hello and had visited with each of us, she went back to her hay and decided it was time to finish her breakfast hay. At this point, I know that there's been a connection between the child and the horse. The child doesn't have to touch the horse or look at the horse or feel the horse. There's been a connection. There's already been some form of communication between the two. So I opened the gate and I said, well, I'm going to go in with the horse, and I looked at the little girl and I said, would you like to come with me? And she didn't really say anything, so I just started walking, but she followed me as well. I knew she would do that because I know what transpired between herself and the horse. Okay, I know the horse has already made a connection with her. We walked into the paddock, and of course I closed the gate, and it was important for the parent to stay in the vicinity but not in the paddock. Now we needed the help of the horse, and so I stood. We were approximately 5 feet away from the horse, and she was still just eating her breakfast hay, finishing it up, and I started talking to the little girl about the horse and about horseback riding and about horses' nature, and I love horses. I can talk lots about the horses, and I was trying to engage her in some way. The whole time, of course, her eyes had been on the ground and continued to be on the ground, and there was no eye contact being made with me or with anyone, not even the horse, nothing in the environment, only the ground. The more I talked and the more I tried to engage her in some way and talk interesting or talk funny or just try some kind of engaging, there was no engaging with any eye contact or any body movement whatsoever. So I started to realize that this wasn't going to happen with humans at all, and I knew that anyway. At this point I was very much aware of that. And the horse, seeing me trying to engage the little girl in some way, I the horse and myself have a very deep connection too. And I understand horses and their herd mentality as well. And I'm one of her family. And so she could see I was having a bit of a problem. And so she decided to come over. And first she came up to me and just said hello to me. And this was her way of acknowledging, you'll be okay. Here, I'm here now. You'll be okay. And just reassuring me. And so I felt a sense of relief. Oh, thank God the horse came up. So then she went over to the little girl who was standing beside me. And she put her nose very gently on the little girl's chest. And then she took her face and she kind of nuzzled it into her chest and her armpit a little bit, you know, just kind of nuzzled. And the little girl did nothing. Didn't look at her, didn't touch her, didn't respond in any way. And the horse just stood like this, very quietly. The two of them stood very quietly like this. And then all of a sudden, the horse took her nose and nudged her back a little bit. And the little girl took a step backwards. And then the little girl reached for the horse's face and started to touch her face. And the little girl took a step back towards the horse, and now she was looking at the horse and patting the horse's face and the horse's neck. And then the horse turned around and went back to eating hay. And the little girl followed her and followed her back to where the hay was and stood looking at her, patting her neck and patting her face. And then I went up to where the little girl and the horse was, and I started patting the horse's neck and talking as well. And the little girl was making no eye contact with me and not talking back or replying to me. She was really patting the horse, and she was looking at the horse, and she really felt a great sense of comfort and security being with the horse. The horse had now befriended the little girl. So then and it's hard to explain, you know, how horses tell you things. They just do. It's a language that takes a long time to learn, and when you learn it, it's difficult to explain to someone else. But what I can tell you is that the horse, having befriended the girl, could now help us again. And so I noticed that there was a little bit of dirt on the horse's neck because she had probably been rolling. So I asked the little girl, would you like to brush some of this dirt off, because then she'll be really nice and shiny. And so the little girl replied yes, but not looking at me. She kept looking at the horse and patting the horse. She was only interested in the horse now. And so I reached for the horse's halter and lead rope, and I put the halter over the horse's head, and then I started walking the horse out of the paddock. However, the little girl followed the horse and stayed with the horse, and then I stopped and I asked the little girl if she would like to lead the horse into the barn where the brushes were, if I showed her how to do that. And again, her only eye contact was with the horse. However, she said yes, she wanted to do that. No eye contact with me at all, only the horse now. So I showed her how to lead the horse, and she watched the horse. And then I gave her the lead rope, and I knew that when she would walk this horse, I knew she would now look at her environment, because how she cared so much about the horse. She had befriended the horse, and she was now going to bring the horse into the barn. And that's exactly what happened. She started to look at the environment as she was walking the horse into the barn. And then when we walked into the barn, I had one of the brushes, and I asked her if she would like me to show her how to brush the horse. And the little girl, again, no eye contact with me whatsoever, said yes, she would like that. And so I took the brush and started brushing the horse, and talked to her about, here's how we brush the horse. And so I gave her the brush, and she started brushing the horse, and then she became concerned about something, and this is the first time she made eye contact with me, and she looked at me very quickly, and then down again at the horse, and asked me if she was hurting the horse. And I said, no, horses, they enjoy to be brushed. This is not hurting her at all. And she was very concerned. She had been hurting the horse, but that was the first eye contact she also made with me. And so she brushed some more, and I encouraged her as she was brushing, and of course I was talking with her as well, and she started looking at me more and more as she was brushing her, and I was talking and explaining things to her, and she was looking more at me. Then it was time to end the session, and so I asked her, well, I said, thank you very much for making the horse look so nice, and did you have fun? And that was the first time she really looked at me and made complete eye contact, and she said yes. And there was absolutely no doubt in my mind that something had changed in this little girl. When she left with her mother, she was looking at the environment. She was not looking straight up at where she was going, but she was definitely now looking at the environment. And I can tell you that the little girl that walked through the gate was not the same little girl that walked out of the gate on that day. None of this would have been possible without the horse. The fact that things changed as the session progressed, and as time went by during the session, is because of the horse. And this is what natural healing with horses is all about.